welcome to Boom and Gloom, where we talk about the boom, the good, and the gloom, which is the bad, of Columbus Blue Jackets hockey. And unfortunately, we have had a lot of gloom to talk about this year. And I am Anthony, by the way. You might know me as Whaler Jacket in social media circles. And I call myself Ohio's longest suffering hockey fan. Now, this is the first episode in 2 weeks. Life just kind of got in the way. I didn't have a chance to record one last week, but here we are now, and we're ready to talk about Blue Jackets. But before we do, I want to tell everyone about a fun thing I plan to do this Tuesday night during my adult hockey league game here in beautiful Troy, Ohio at Hobart Arena. My dad gave me his old Northland wood hockey stick. Straight blade, solid wood construction, the old school stuff. Well, I plan on playing with it for at least a portion of my hockey game on Tuesday night. I'm going to try to record some of it and post it to YouTube. So if you're interested, keep an eye on my Twitter account later this week, and I'll get that posted and let everyone know. So now, let's get on with some Blue Jackets hockey talk. Now, fair warning, I just kind of threw this episode together, so we may be in for a rough ride, but I think we'll be okay. And I am joined today by some guests. First, friend of the show. Can I call you that, Mark? Friend of the show, Mark
Sure.
Carell.
Absolutely.
All right, friend of the show. I've heard some other podcasts say that before, and I've never been able to say it. So, welcome, friend of the show, Mark Carell, at Mark Carell2 on Twitter. And then a new guest this week. I'd like to welcome William at that one CBJ fan on Twitter. How are you guys doing?
Doing amazing.
Amazing. All right.
Good.
Well, I'm glad that you guys are here to talk some Jackets hockey with me. I greatly appreciate you taking the time to do so, especially when I kind of sprung it out there so fast. So I appreciate it. So, all right, gentlemen. First segment, we're going to talk about what's going through a lot of hockey fans' minds this week is the trade deadline. The NHL trade deadline is set for this Friday, and we have been led to believe by John Davidson and other members of the media that this will not be a very active deadline for the Jackets. And I also read this morning, I don't know if you guys heard this, something very surprising to me. I figured that Adam Fantilli and Ken Johnson would be sent down to the AHL, tear things up, and help the Monsters win a Calder Cup. But I guess that's not going to happen. I guess it can't happen per NHL rules. So in order to be sent down for the AHL playoffs, I guess you have to send them down at the deadline, then call them right back up. It's like some kind of paper move to make it legitimate. But I learned that NHL teams can't do that if the player is injured. So if I interpret that correctly, that means Adam Fantilli is definitely out. He can't do that. He can go down for a few games. I don't remember the number for conditioning, but that's about it. And then Johnson would have to come back and play at least one of the games this week. And last I heard, he was still out indefinitely. So I don't know if he'll be eligible either. So I have been very busy, guys. So I'm going to ask you guys if you have heard something I have not. Have you guys heard anything about Kent Johnson's injuries or any timetable to his return?
I was going to ask you that because I haven't seen anything. I still don't even know what happened. I saw the replay on X like over and over, and I'm still trying to figure out what happened.
All we know is that he's going to be out indefinitely, and it's an upper body injury. I'm sorry, I'm like losing my voice, so I'm trying to like not voice crack so much.
It's okay. That's cool. No big deal at all. Yeah, I saw that clip too, and I couldn't tell either what exactly happened. So I was hoping, since I've been kind of away from Twitter for a while, that you guys heard something. So obviously we're all kind of in the dark right now. So I don't know if he comes back this week, then they can send him down for the playoffs, but I guess we'll have to see. All right. Well, so let's do it. Let's talk about what's going to happen at the deadline. And here's what I'd like to do with you guys. I'm going to list 6 Blue Jackets players who have been the subject of some trade rumors at some point this season. And I'd like us to make a prediction and put them into one of 3 categories. Is this player going to be gone at the trade deadline, gone at some point during the summer when the new GM arrives and makes some deals, or do you think they'll be with the Jackets next season, at least at the start of it? Okay. So I'll ask you guys what you think, and feel free to elaborate, and then I'll throw in my thoughts as well. So let's start off with the, I guess, one of the most talked about and our only unrestricted free agent, Jack Roslovic. So, Mark, what do you think? We'll start with you.
I don't know what his value is because he's had such an up and down year. And I don't know who, like, is he a center? Is he a winger? Like, what are the playoff teams coveting that he would be able to provide? I mean, he doesn't provide grit or sandpaper. He has, I mean, I would say tertiary scoring. He's not really even our secondary option most of the time. So I guess it depends on the best offer. And if that's like a 5th or 6th round pick, I guess you just do it just to clear up the room for a prospect to come up and play.
So do you think it happens? Do you think, obviously we don't have a GM, so, JD's kind of filling in that role right now. Do you think it gets done?
I'm on the fence. I think Davidson doesn't want to make really any moves. The Brimstrom one kind of shocked me that Davidson did that. I figured he would let the new GM do any sort of moves. But since he's the only unrestricted free agent, I would say I'm about 75% that he would get traded.
Okay. William, how about you? What do you think?
I think that we're just going to move him over the summer because we don't know when we're going to get this new GM. We could get him by the beginning of the summer, and then he can start racking off all of these moves that are going to happen. And I mean, Roslovic's trade value, it's on the open market. It's a 2.65, which I'm not that good with these numbers, but that doesn't look like a good number.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think if we get rid of him, it's going to be over summer, just through free agency.
Yeah, and you guys both bring up a good point. So there's hurdles. I don't know if I'd say hurdles, but there are things to get over. It's not going to be an easy trade. Basically, it's finding a willing person and a willing team, and who is willing to take him on. So I'm going to say summer as well. That's what I would say. But Mark, I want to go back to a comment you mentioned about Bemstrom, because this is something I was wondering too, and since you brought him up, I figure we'll ask it now. I have read some theories, I guess, online that it's kind of a coincidence that Jarmo gets fired, and then within a few days, Bemstrom gets traded. So the theory that I saw was that Jarmo thought so highly of Bemstrom, he was kind of like his pet project, and the only reason the Jackets were keeping him around was because Jarmo insisted on keeping him around. Do you guys read anything into that?
I read a little bit into it, and I think it's a good point to be brought up because on the show that I'm on, we were talking about this topic heavily, and it's a new era. Jarmo's gone. We got to move on. And Bemstrom, I'm sorry to say it, he just hasn't been performing well.
Agreed.
So we had to get rid of him, and we got Nylander out of it. So I think it was a good move.
If you don't mind me asking, because I think it's important that Jackets fans promote each other, and we're all kind of friends in this. What is that podcast that you're on?
It is called Brew Jackets. We're live every Wednesday at 6.
There you go. Every Wednesday at 6. And to me, I can't get enough Blue Jackets podcasts. I'll listen to them to and from work every day. And so I'm always interested in, hearing others as well.
Hmm.
Mark, any comments on Bemstrom before I move on?
The reason I said I was shocked is because I didn't think Davidson would make any personnel moves, especially with someone still having term. I figured he would wait until a GM was hired. But whether or not that was a good trade or not, I thought it was a good trade. We have already Nylander is, the change of scenery has apparently done him well.
Yeah.
I haven't really been keeping track of Pittsburgh. I do know Bemstrom scored on his first game with them, so we only need 5 more to get that 6th to a third.
5 more.
But I don't think it's going to happen. But that's the only thing that really caught me off guard was that Davidson actually did something. Now the pet project, I've read that. I've read several people who said that Yarmo's biggest issue was he overvalued his own prospects.
True.
And
okay.
I mean, he's the one who scouted and had his scout team get the information and he drafted them. So what GM doesn't overvalue their own prospects? It's only typically when it is an obvious lost cause that the GMs give up on their own guys, like Foodie. Obviously,
right?
That was not turning around, and it still hasn't. He's in the AHL for Nashville. He's not on the Nashville, NHL team. So he's obviously that has not worked out with either team so far.
Yeah, man, I remember when they called. I forget what it was. Was it the Toronto series? They called him up from the juniors. I was so excited about Foodie. It's just a shame. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So back to my list here. So that was Roslovic. That was our last person. So here's my next one. So remember, we're going. Has he gone at the trade deadline, summer, or will he be here next season? So my next one is Provorov. What do you think about that, William? We'll start with you. What do you think?
I think that Provorov, we're going to see him next year. Because, I mean, I don't remember exactly how long ago it was, but I'm going to say it was somewhat recent. We just got him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it takes time to develop that perfect line, and he just needs to find his perfect defensive pair. And then I think whatever line he's on, that line could end up being really productive. So I hope to see him next year just to see what happens. And if he doesn't do good next year, maybe we can start looking at the possibility of trading him away at next year's deadline or making some moves to get rid of him over summer or something like that.
Yeah, because next year I believe is the last year of his contract with the Jackets. I believe. So yeah, that trade at the deadline. Okay. Mark, what do you think?
I agree. I think we see him in the jacket sweater next season. And if all things go the way they should not go, and the Jackets are out of it by Thanksgiving, as per usual with their history, then I think, he's gone at the next year's trade deadline. But this year he stays. Next year trade deadline is, I think, when that would happen. Well, but I do agree. I think what he needs is a defensive-minded defenseman on his other side, because he is a good puck mover and he's got a wicked shot, so you want to take advantage of that. But how many defensive defensemen do we actually have on the roster at the moment?
There you go. That's one of my biggest. It has been one of my biggest concerns is the lack of that.
I mean, is Branson a defensive defenseman?
I would classify him as one. I mean, whether he is or not, I don't know, but I would say he is more of a defensive defenseman. But I'm going to agree with you about what you said about what Provorov needs, but I'm going to actually disagree with you guys and say I'm going to say he's gone this summer. I'm going to predict that the new GM comes in and makes something happen. If it was up to me personally, I mean, I would like to see him traded at the deadline, but I don't see that happening. But I can see it happening this summer. Next on my list, gentlemen, is Mr. Adam Boqvist. What do you think? Is he going to be gone at the deadline here, or traded at the summer, or here next season? Mark, we'll start with you on him.
if he changes his number, I think he would have better luck.
That's what I was going to
And
say.
and therefore he would be more apt at staying through next season. But in all seriousness, he hasn't been terrible. He hasn't made the same mistakes that Bean has made. My God, or Peak. Like, my God, those two I don't know what their issue is, but they make the same mistake every game, and it always ends up either the puck is on net or it's a high danger chance. So he's not as bad as those two. So I would say they keep him because he's got a higher offensive ceiling than both of those two, I believe.
All right, so here for next season for Mark. What about you, William? What are you thinking?
Like he said, that number. No.
Did Ryan Murray start that? Was he the first person to have injury problems?
I thought Malhotra was 27 and he started getting hurt.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
But if he doesn't change that number and he keeps getting hurt, get rid of him. I don't care where we send him. I will trade him away for a pizza and a $5 gift card if I have to.
Oh, gosh. Poor Adam. Well, I guess for me, at some point, I mean, as we go through this list here, I mean, with Matejchuk coming up in the near future, with Juracek in the hopefully coming up next year, I mean, something has to give. So we're going to have to see some of these defensemen moved out. And so to me, I think Boqvist is one of those that's moved out. And I'm going to go with, again, this summer. I think our new GM will come in and swing a trade this summer. And then, all right, here's a good one. Jake Bean. What's going to happen to Mr. Bean? William, what do you think? We'll start with you on this one.
I think that he hasn't been that productive from what I've seen. I don't know his stats off the top of my head, but if he doesn't get those numbers up before, I think he's gonna make it through the trade deadline. But if he doesn't get his numbers up, I think he's gone over the summer.
What about you, Mark? You in the same boat?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Unless for some reason the juniors allow Stouffville to Stanislav Stouffville to come up to the NHL to give him a little taste of it. I don't see why Bean would stay. I know they traded a second round pick for him, but he hasn't played worth someone who was even selected in the 5th round. So
at some point you got to cut your losses.
Yeah. Now, I mean, again, but is it like with these defensemen? Is it the system? Is it having your third coach in 4 years? Because Bean was didn't we get him with Torts, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. So you had Torts. Yeah. So this is his third coach. Does that matter? I don't know, but I mean, he's still relatively young, so he might be able to be reclaimed by another team. But that's a project I don't want to keep, pumping money into or resources into to try to get it to work.
Yeah, and he is actually, like, I'm going to go against you guys again. I'm going to say he's going to be a trade deadline casualty.
This year?
I think that, yeah, I don't have a lot of data or anything to back that up. It's just a gut feeling I have that they have to move somebody. I think they're going to, JD, I guess, is going to swing a trade. It won't be for much. It'll be a high draft pick. But again, at some point you have to eliminate the glut on the back end. And so I think he's going to be one of the trade deadline casualties. And then I'll just start the next one. Andrew Peak, I think he is also going to be a trade deadline casualty. And again, I don't think they're going to get much for him. It's going to be basically who is willing to take him. And it's going to be a bag of pucks coming back. The Jackets may even have to eat some of the salary. I don't know. But I'm hoping that Mr. Zito down in Florida, liked what he saw when he was a part of the Jackets organization. And he decides, you know what? I would like some of that grit and that shot blocking that Peak can bring to our roster for the playoffs. So I'm going to go Andrew Peak and Jake Bean trade deadline. What do you guys think about Peak? Mark, are you with me?
Man, I would like to see that. He should have been gone over the summer. But I mean, you called your shot, huh? Peak to
I did.
Florida.
I did.
I think, yeah. I mean, as another player where you shake your head and you're just like, man, maybe Yarmo just held on to this guy too long. So his value is now significantly lower. Will he be gone trade deadline? I don't think so. I think the major moves are to come during the summer. I think he's one of the ones that stays.
No, I agree with you about that. I think that we're going to see some major moves at the summer, but I just something tells me that after the Bemstrom trade, we're going to see something happen at the deadline. So Peak and Bean are my predictions. William, anything to mention about Peak?
I think that he's going to be gone at the trade deadline. And just like you did, I'm going to call my shot too. I think he's going to go to Vancouver because they've been linked to him for a while now.
Interesting. Wouldn't that be cool though if one of those two works out, and then we can brag about it.
Peak for the other Pedersen, not the good one. 1 for 1.
A good one. No, he just signed 8 years, didn't he? Did I see that?
The good one did, yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I've been kind of off social media lately, but I did see that kind of come across the headlines. Okay, I got one more for you. So believe it or not, we've done 5, and this one I don't think has really been subject to the trade rumors. This is just something that I kind of thought of might be someone who can be traded, might need to change the scenery, might not have worked out the way we'd hoped, and that is Alexander Texier. So, I look at it like this: the new GM coming in is obviously going to make some moves to make this team his or hers, okay? And I firmly believe that we need some veteran experience on our roster, some experience with winning. And when I look at the players, when somebody has to go, somebody in the lineup has to go to make that happen. And I just see Texier as one of those options. So whether you guys agree with me or not about that, let's just, for discussion's sake, let's just say, Texier is a possible trade candidate. Do you think he'll be gone at the deadline, gone in the summer, or will he be with the Jackets next year? So I forget who I did first last time, so I'm just going to go back to you, Mark. What do you think? Texier?
Oh, man. Let me think about this one for a second. I'm going to say if we are going with the premise that he is in fact a candidate to be traded at the deadline, that is a player people would like. So I would say if he is on the market, he would be traded by the deadline.
Deadline, interesting.
If he's not on the market, and that's just some figment of some Toronto Maple Leafs fan who make up all this crap and throw stuff at the wall and try to hope it sticks, like they're going to get Kent Johnson. If there's absolutely no way he's on the market, then I don't think he even gets moved over the summer. He would be with us. So given your statement that we're going to assume he is on the market, I would say deadline. That's the player that people want.
Okay.
And we might actually get something for him.
Right, exactly. Okay. William, what do you think? Agree, disagree, different opinion?
I completely agree with what he said. He said everything. He said what I was going to say, like almost word for word. So.
All right. Well, so those are kind of like my 6 players that kind of popped in the mind, but one person we haven't talked about, and I'll just kind of get your thoughts about. You don't have to like.
I think I know who you're talking about.
What's that?
I think I know who you're going to say.
Elvis?
Oh no, I thought you were going to go Laine.
Oh, Laine. I didn't even think about Laine. All right, well, let's talk about both. Let's start with Elvis, and then I'll get your thoughts on Laine. A lot of speculation this year with Elvis, and obviously the goalie situation hasn't been where we want it to be. But what do you think about him, guys? I mean, is he going to be a Jacket long term? Is there going to be some trades, especially when the new GM comes in? What do you think? What do you think? What are your thoughts about Elvis? William, your thoughts?
I've been saying this for a little bit. Elvis he needs to change of scenery. He has his good days, and then he'll go on he'll have like a couple good games, and he'll go on just cold streaks
Yeah,
for a while. And I know he has a lot of history in Columbus, but I just think it's time to part direction. I mean, who do we have in our system? We have Jed Greaves. When we had him even in the AHL, he's doing amazing. We have Tarasov. We have all these guys who we can just build up. And I think Elvis could do better somewhere else. It'll hurt to see him go, but it's the best for both parties.
I 100% agree with you. My only concern is who's going to take him. That's my big concern. The new GM is going to really have to find a dance partner. They're going to willing to accept his contract, accept all the antics and stuff that goes with Elvis. So it all depends on his general manager skills, I think, if he can pull it off. But
Here's a
I totally
question.
agree.
How many times can you have a player traded to eat some of the salary? Because the most common one is player A traded to B. They retain the team retains 50% salary. Team B trades the player to team C, and they retain 50% of what's left over. So, how many times can we do that to make it manageable for someone to give us something of worth, of value? Does the CBA limit that, or do we know?
I don't know.
Can we do a 5-team trade where every team takes 50%? So one team, the final team that's actually taking him owes them $200,000.
That I don't.
That might work.
Interesting idea.
I found a perfect trade partner for Elvis.
Okay.
What's that?
So I don't know if you guys remember his quote after he beat the Canucks. He said, "I'm pulling the monster out of me."
Oh yeah, how could you forget that?
He could go pull the Predator out of him and go to Nashville.
Oh, there you go.
I don't even know what's their goalie situation look like. Is that even a possibility?
I think it's Taros, but I mean Elvis could get back up.
Man, it's that contract. That's just. But I will say this, Mark, about what you said about that situation with contracts. I have heard some people talking about Provorov, like if the Kings wanted him back, I guess, and I haven't looked into it, but I heard that they're paying some of his salary right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so if he got traded back there, how would that work? But I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about the other name that you brought up, because I have pretty strong feelings about this one, and that's Patrik Laine. So you brought it up, Mark, so I'll let you start. What do you think? What are your thoughts regarding Patrik Laine?
I brought it up because that is one of the number one people that CBJ Twitter want to get rid of, because he's not a 40-goal scorer. And I'm like, well, one, he gets hurt.
Yes.
So that's going to limit it. And there must be something in Columbus, because every time a player comes here, they get freaking hurt. He wasn't hurt in Winnipeg very often, but boom, he's hurt here. But I mean, I don't know. I don't think you just trade this guy away and just say, all right, well, it's not working, because I mean, he hasn't really been on the ice a whole lot, and not through anything of his own fault. I still don't know what's going on right at the moment. That other podcast that made a very horrible joke gave some insight as to maybe it's because when they say player assistance, are we talking drug and alcohol? Are we talking mental health? I don't know what that means. So I mean, to me, that's a huge bucket, and all of a sudden everyone just assumes it's either drugs or mental health. Well, it could be something else. It could be you could have anxiety for something that just is starting to cripple him, and he's trying to work through that. That's neither drugs nor really mental health. I don't think anxiety is really mental health. It's just the way you feel. But so I don't know. And certainly not the joke that was made. I don't think that has anything to do with it. I wouldn't think, but I don't know.
No, I wouldn't think it has. That would affect his trade status or anything. But but I see. I'm gonna go a little bit of a different way, and like I respect Line as a player, and I respect what he is capable of based on his previous seasons in Winnipeg, and I understand that it just hasn't worked out for him so far, injuries and whatever. But my thing is, with so many up and comers on the Blue Jackets roster, is he the bargaining chip that our new GM uses to bring in the piece of the puzzle that maybe we're not even thinking of? Because I think Laine has, despite his quote unquote struggles, he has that name recognition value, and he has that potential that another GM might be thinking, oh, if I can just pair him up with so and so on my team, he's going to get right up to that 40 goal plateau again. So my thinking is, like, if he stays with the Jackets, fine. I wouldn't be upset about that. But I also recognize that he might be able, through trade, to bring us something of greater value. Not necessarily more goals, but something, like I said, the missing piece to the puzzle for this new GM to take us to the next level. So I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I'm not sure it's going to happen. So sorry, I rambled there a bit. William, did you have anything to add about Laine?
I kind of agreed with what you were saying earlier. They're just like targeting him, like, oh, not a 40 goal scorer. He's still a pretty good player in general.
With a huge contract too, though. That's something else that would have to be considered. Do either of you know, because I can't think of it off the top of my head, how many more years is he a Jacket, like, guaranteed? Like, when does it run out?
Let me look real quick.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I know. I mean, he's definitely here next year for sure, and I want to say 2 more years after that, but I can't remember. And I think that
2026 is last year.
like 25, 26 or 26, 27.
Looks like 25, 26.
Okay, so it's next year and the year after. So he is guaranteed with us for 2 more years. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, a lot of different ways we can go. I would love to be a fly on the wall with all these GM candidates coming in, and see where these prospective GMs are thinking they can take our team and what they want to do. But before we move on to our next topic, actually, it kind of goes into our next topic. Do you guys think that the new GM is going to get a new coach for us? Do you think Pascal's days are numbered? Any immediate thoughts that come to mind?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you
He's
say, "Oh
gone.
yeah," you have a thought, or "Oh yeah, he's gone"?
Both.
Okay.
Both. He's gone. Like, I'm sorry, it was a nice little test run, but get out of here.
I feel just as strongly. I hate to say it. I didn't, but I'm at the point now where I'm like, you know what? A new GM comes in, he's going to want his own guy. So I think Pascal's days are numbered, so to speak. So, Mark, what do you think? Staying or going?
It wouldn't shock me either way. It just depends on if ownership is willing to pay a fourth coach for the next couple of years. If they are, then I'd say Pascal's gone, because typically GMs do want their own coach because they have a different way of looking at the game, and they want a coach that looks at it similar to them, which is why I think Torts and Yarmo worked well together. But I don't think that was the only coach that they had that worked well with Yarmo.
And you bring up an interesting point too with paying another coach. I just think and I know it's the way the world works with professional sports, but I just think it's terrible that when a professional coach signs a contract, that it's unbreakable. Like, it's like he gets paid no matter what. If he doesn't do his job well, he gets fired, but he still gets paid. I'm a teacher. If I don't do my job well, my contract doesn't matter. I'm gone. and I don't get paid. I just think it's kind of crazy the way it's set up in professional sports. All right. So that's a nice kind of segue to my next little topic I want to talk about, and that is Pascal Vincent's comments regarding Voronkov and Chinnikov getting benched in the third period against the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, for anybody who didn't hear that out there, he stated when he was asked about why those two players were benched, he stated, I'm reading this from a quote, "I'm cautious about that line because they start playing like the Harlem Globetrotters. I don't want to see that." So I'm going to tell you guys my thoughts, my perspective on this, and then you guys can chime in with yours. I am not upset at all about the comment. I really don't care about that. What he said doesn't bother me. And there's a lot of people on Twitter who it has really bothered. But I am upset that he chose to bench the guys who have been typically consistent and producing forwards this season. So I don't care about what he said. What I care about is what he did. If you want to bench them for a few shifts as like a warning, hey, get your butts in gear, great. But if not, if you were truly trying to win every game like he says, then you got to play the players who are giving your team the best chance at winning. And if you're not trying to win at all costs, like if you're thinking about the future, then let them play. Let them make the mistakes. Like I said, bench them for a few shifts. You're not making the playoffs, so let them grow. If you want to bench people, fine, but also be consistent about it. I mean, there are players on this team that deserve to be benched more than those two guys, but they're not. So that's my thought on that. William, what do you think? Do you agree with me on this, or am I just flying off the handle for no reason?
No, you got a point. It's one of Pascal's stupid comments. This is exactly why I don't like him.
So let me force you to elaborate a little bit then. So you disagree with the comment, but do you agree or disagree that those two should have been benched versus Carolina?
I honestly, I don't remember the final score of the Carolina game,
4 to
but
2.
There you go.
okay. My philosophy, this is kind of a dumb philosophy, but if we're already gonna lose and we already know, there's no reason to bench, Let them finish the game and then go through and make changes after.
Yeah, I don't think that's dumb at all. I don't think it's a dumb opinion at all. I mean, especially where we are in the season, I don't think that's dumb at all. Mark, what do you think?
All right, so two things. One, the comment, I didn't have an issue with the comment. I liked the comment. And then he further elaborated, said the reason why Chinnikov was benched in the third period is because of the turnovers. The dude had like 5 turnovers that period, in the second period. And at least 3 of them, he had ample opportunity, time, and space to get the puck out of the zone. And he didn't. He did something stupid and gave the puck right to Carolina. And I can't remember if any of them led directly to a goal, but I do know they led directly to high danger chances. And if it weren't for our goaltender, then it would have absolutely been a goal. So I even tweeted after that third one, or after the last turnover, I said, Chinnikov is probably going to get benched in the third. Sure
Did
enough,
you really?
Sure did.
Nice.
Sure
Good
did. And then
call.
somebody else said the reason Chinnikov was benched in the third period, per Pascal Vincent, is turnovers. So I quote tweeted them and said, sometimes you get it right. And sure enough, I nailed it. I knew it was happening. And I have no problem with it. Like, dude, all we ask is just to make the play that needs to be made. And I don't care if it's fancy. Get the puck out of your zone and start over. Carolina is too damn good to just lollygag and puck handle and let them take it from you. And he kept doing it. So he sits. I don't care how old he is. I don't care how good that line is. F around, you find out. Well, he FAFO'd. He sat.
Now, again, I'm with you on that. I'm with you. I think that players need to be held accountable. My issue was how long the punishment lasted or whatever. Now, can you obviously watched the game, and I unfortunately was just going by what I've read. What about Voronkov? Did you see, like, did his play warrant the benching, do you believe?
He was kind of invisible. Like, they took that line out. Like, after the first period, they were humming. They were awesome. And then Carolina just took them out. Just completely shut them down. And Voronkov took a couple penalties. They were iffy. They were iffy. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be 100% biased. I'm a Blue Jackets fan. They were iffy, dang it. But, like, they were legitimate. Like, are you seriously calling that? Like, both teams have been doing way worse stuff to each other, and that's what you're going to call whatever. So I think that might be part of the problem, and that is a lot of the problem with Voronkov is, one, he speaks very little English, and two, he doesn't quite understand that North America plays a little bit different than Russia.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that too.
So I didn't realize he got benched for the whole third period because I didn't notice that line other than when they were screwing up.
Huh. Well, I think also too, and just something I've noticed, Voronkov, taking some time to get accustomed to the North American game, take some penalties. He does take some penalties, and I think that'll kind of change in time, like when he gets more and more comfortable. I think he's already shown improvement in that as well. But I also think that because he's limited in English, I think sometimes maybe he has some difficulty understand what the referees are telling him.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed like some kind of confused looks on his face sometimes. But again, that I think in time that'll kind of change. So, all right, gentlemen. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark. You had something else to add?
I was saying I agree. It's just, for him, it's his rookie year. He's going to take some time. And now I will say this: I've noticed a lot of people on social medias are always clamoring for other, like, why aren't you benching the vets? And it's because they're not making the same mistake over and over again. They're not like, I know Severson has made some errors, but it's like one or two errors a game, and it's a different error each time. Chinakhov makes the same play, the same error, same thing with Peak, and it drives me nuts. The same play over and over again, and it doesn't work. And you're like, why are you doing it? Sit him. He's not getting it. That play does not work. Stop doing it. Oh, I'm going to do it again. That's why you sit.
Oh man, and coaching plays a part in that too. It's just, I don't know. Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Well, I have one more thing to talk to you about, and I guess this is more of like, just as fellow CBJ fans, I don't know if this is going to warrant a whole lot of discussion. It's more or less just I wanted to vent. I wanted to vent to some fellow Blue Jackets fans. It's just, the title of this podcast, Boom and Gloom. There's so much gloom, and it just helps sometimes to vent to some fellow fans. So here we go. You can give me your thoughts on this, but listening to Aaron Portzline's Front and Nationwide podcast, the most recent episode was with a guy named Scott Wheeler, and I don't know anything about him, but from listening to the podcast, he just seems to know his stuff. Like, he really knows. Any player that Aaron brought up to him, he was able to rattle off a whole bunch of stats and talk about their playing styles. And I was just very impressed with that aspect of it. But here's what he said. He ranked all the teams in the NHL in terms of their prospect pool. He has Blue Jackets at 3. I can't remember who he said was 2, but he said number 1 was the Detroit Red Wings. And that bothers me because, and I used to hate the Red Wings when they were in the Red Wings division. I hated them. But what bothers me most is that I am seeing such a huge uptick in Detroit's play, like where they are in the standings, and it seems like they're ready to really take that next step. And the Jackets are still lingering behind. I mean, the Detroit Red Wings were, I know you guys can't see me right now, but really up here, like really high. Then they were really low. They rebuilt, and now they're ready to make their move. And yet the Jackets are just stuck in mediocrity. So that's my venting to you guys. That just really irks me. Do you have anything to help me through this?
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
so
you do.
so Detroit has been down for a decade
Yes.
or longer. So it has taken them 10 years to get to this point. We've been down for 3 seasons.
Okay.
So do you really want to go the Detroit route and be down for another 7 seasons?
I don't.
I think we have some of the players right now that
Okay.
if they
That's what I
develop
wanted
the
to
way
hear.
they should be, we should be where Detroit is. I would say we're competing for a cup 27-28. We're competing for like the division title 26-27.
Okay.
Because
That's
usually that gives Fantilli his 3 or 4 years in the league. Johnson will be in his 5th or 6th. I mean, Crosby didn't win a cup until he was what, 5th or 6th year in the league, something like
okay.
that. Taves and Kane, they were drafted in 04-05. They didn't win their first cup till 2010. It takes time, but we have where our prospects are compared to where they were at their year 3, miles ahead. Again, taking Detroit 10 years to get here.
Well, that helps, Mark. Thank you. That really helps. It just seems like, even like when you said the Jackets were good 3 years ago, I can see that. But it's just when we don't have the playoff success, it just makes me think we've been bad for so long. But you're right. There have been some good years, mixed in there. And then it's just so hard, though. It's just so hard when you don't have the playoff success. Oh, okay. And William,
number
I didn't
2
mean
was
to tune you
Detroit.
out.
Number 1 was the Sabres.
Oh, number 2 was Detroit. Okay.
Yeah.
Good call. So number 1 was okay. Thank you. Just didn't remember correctly.
So let's not be where Buffalo is either.
No.
They're like in year 14 of rebuilding.
Good
And
call on that.
They've had the number 1 prospects like 4 or 5 times in that span. So let's not be them either.
Darn you with your logic and your your high hopes, your optimism. Darn you, Mark. William, I didn't mean to cut you out of all that. Anything to add to that before I go to my last thing here?
No, you can go ahead and go. He said what I was going to say.
Okay. All right. Well, I just want one more thing that Scott Wheeler mentioned. I just thought was interesting, and again, it's not a huge discussion point. It's just kind of an interesting anecdote or whatever you want to call it. He mentioned that he doesn't feel any of the Blue Jackets' current goalies, like anybody in their system, like currently on their roster, AHL, he doesn't see any of them as long-term NHL solutions at goaltender for CBJ. So, listening to that, I was just kind of like, oh, I thought, Greaves was possibly an answer, based on all I've read, all I've seen of him. But this guy, he doesn't see any of the 3 right now, Tarasov, Elvis, or Greaves, as long-term answers. Do you guys agree with that?
Mm-hmm. I agree with it completely.
So that means, if you agree, then that means that we've got to be either drafting somebody soon, putting our hopes on that Ivanov guy, or new GM's got to be making a trade.
I just think we got to do what we have to do to get the job done. Because at the end of the day, it's a business,
Well, this way, 3 years ago, Tarasov and Merzlikins were the 1-2 that were going to be leading this team to glory. You can't tell with goaltenders. Look at Bobrovsky. He was an afterthought in Philadelphia, comes to Columbus, wins 2 Vezinas, and now he's on a team in Florida that absolutely could win the Stanley Cup. And it's because of him that they can do so, because he's been making the timely stops. He wasn't a highly touted draft pick. He wasn't a highly touted player. So who knows? Scott Wheeler, I mean, you can't predict goalies. Scott Wheeler could be way off when it comes to goalies. It's not hard to miss when you know for a fact that Sidney Crosby or Connor Bedard or Adam Fantilli all should be number 1 centers on a team ever. You're never going to miss those guys. Where GMs make their money is taking the guys, which Yarmo was good at finding the gems in the coal mine. It's finding a goalie that you can mold into a good NHLer, because no prospect for a goalie is going to be it until they are actually it.
And I personally don't really want to give up on Tarasov yet. I mean, he was highly touted. He's shown some good things, and injuries have kind of derailed a lot of his progress, I think. So I'm not ready to throw in the towel on him either. So, it's another one of those time will tell type things. He might, out of the blue, become a Vezina candidate. I mean, there's plenty of goalies out there who one team has cast aside and has blossomed into this fantastic goalie. Like, where did you come from?
Well, that was Jonathan Quick.
There you go.
So, and he when's the last goalie that was that's won a cup that was with the team that they drafted them? I think it was Quick.
Yeah, I'd have to look that up. I'm not sure. You might be right. Yeah, I can't think of any others. Where did oh gosh, what is his name? Swayman, Ullmark? They didn't come up with the Bruins, right? They were traded. Am I right?
I don't believe so.
No, he was drafted by the Bruins.
Which one?
Swayman.
Okay. And Ullmark, was he traded there?
I'll check right now. My voice is getting worse and worse. No, he came from the Sabres.
I'm sorry, we're forcing you to talk here.
No, okay, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I was wrong. Right. It was Holtby. Holtby was drafted by the Capitals. So he and Quick, those are the last 2 goalies that I can think of that actually were drafted by the team that they won the Stanley Cup with.
Wow.
So
interesting.
It doesn't really matter where you find your goalie as long as you find the goalie.
And I hope the Jackets do that, because I really think, I mean, that's one of the things we have to do. We have to solve the goalie situation, solve the defense. I'm not all that worried about our offense. I'm really not. I think that's coming along. But we take care of goalie, we take care of defense, and then we start showing some progress. So, all right, gentlemen, are we ready to end this for now? I know William is.
Yeah, let's give William a break. We got a show on Wednesday.
That's right. I'm gonna tune in and I'm gonna be like, I know that guy now.
Yeah, where can we find that show?
We're live on Twitter and YouTube, Facebook, basically everywhere.
Do you guys do a video feed as well?
Yeah, there's a video feed.
Oh, nice. Okay. Very cool. We'll have to check that out. And so that is the Brew Jackets podcast, right?
Yep.
So anybody listening out there who wants some other awesome Jackets talk, well, you can tune in. You said Wednesdays?
Yep, Wednesdays.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, I really appreciate you joining me today. This was episode 14 in the books now for Boom and Gloom. Really appreciate you guys coming on. Any closing thoughts before we head out of here?
Nope,
I'm good.
Awesome. All right, guys, take care, and hope to see everybody back next week. Goodbye, everybody, and go Jackets.